What's going on, good people? Before we dive into this week's episode, of course, we got to shout out our sponsor for the week, the wonderful world of Cultivate Real Estate here in the ATL. So listen, if you're even remotely interested in looking to get into a home, buy a home, maybe you want to get another house and flip it, whatever it is, if you're interested in that real estate here in Atlanta, Georgia, check them out, Cultivate Real Estate.
Yeah, you know where you can find them. Find them on Instagram at Cultivate Real Estate. Slide in those DMs, check them out, ask any questions you have. They're here for you and ready to cultivate a good relationship. So holla at them and let's get into this episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sum It Up with the Sumners. I am KaToya and this is
Damon.
Yes, and we are your hosts and we are so happy to have you here rocking and listening with us. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, whether it's your 30 plus episode or if it's your first. We are glad to have you here as we get into a good topic today about making big decisions.
Making big decisions.
Yeah, and if you're rolling with us right off of the last 2 weeks episodes of how do you know if it's time to get married, and that's a big decision too. So we just want to start it off with that. As always, before we get into this, we're gonna shout out and give out some reviews, and Damon's gonna lead us out.
Let's do it this week here. So if you're just now rocking with us here, we're trying to get to 100 reviews in the month of March. So take 30 seconds, 60 seconds of your day at work, wherever you're at. Don't text and drive. The drop us a review. We appreciate it. But this one here comes from Ian, bracket, insert clever nickname, close bracket. I appreciate that, Ian. He wasn't going to put the time and energy trying to come up with a cool name. Just Ian. That's what we're going to go with. It's like the double date you ... Why Apple didn't tell me the whole thing, I don't know.
Or maybe he didn't.
Maybe. Touche. I'll take that back, Apple. 5 stars. That's what we care about. It says, you know how once in a blue moon you meet a couple that you simultaneously think, I want to be friends with them. And I want to be them. The couple you want to go on a double date with to have a good time with, but also have real talk and maybe learn a thing or two from. The Sumners are that couple, but not in a pretentious way. In a hashtag couple goals, hashtag family goals type of way. They are not just funny, although they are both very funny. They're also honest, endearing, and wise beyond their years. They are the couple that only can enjoy simultaneously as peers, mentors, and entertainers. I look forward to many more weeks of these perfect one-way double dates. Ian! My goodness.
That was really kind of you.
Goodness gracious.
If it's the one Ian, I don't know.
I only know 2. And if it's either one of you guys.
Hey, thank you guys so much.
Even if it's
really
not,
sweet.
thank you.
Yeah, whoever you are. Thank you. That's really kind. And they are. You know, it's so funny. I lead trainings for Pound, and I'm always like, hey, I do a podcast where I talk to the screen one way. That is not what this is. Please don't engage with me. But it's cool that you can still feel like we're on this double date, because we are.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
And sweetly, we've had many of friends say, like, I've had friends just call me, like, hey, KaToya, like they've just been talking to me because of the podcast. So that's exactly what our goal is here, is to feel like you are sitting in our living room. So
that's it.
Thanks,
I mean,
Ian.
you know, we started this in the midst of the pandemic, and one thing that we've loved to do for a lot of our marriage is to have people over, to have fun, to laugh, to share a meal, to share laughs, right? Share stories. And so that was a huge reason why we wanted to, you know, create this podcast, was just to continue that. And we don't want it to be a one-way street. I mean, there, you know, in the DMs, in the comment section, things like that.
Talk back to us.
Text us, whatever the case may be. We want to hear that, have that dialogue. But there's something about sharing stories and having fun together and living life. That's just always been a hoot.
That's us.
That's it.
So
let's get into it.
Making big decisions. All right, Damon, hit us with this quote you discovered.
This is a quote I discovered here that on average an adult makes about 35 decisions a day.
Nope, 35.
What'd I say?
You just said 35.
Is that all I said?
Yeah.
I was wrong. 35,000 decisions a day.
Yep.
An average adult makes about 35,000 decisions a day. Now, of course, many of those decisions are going to be smaller, quick, boom, boom, boom decisions. And probably some of them, depending on your life, your job, whatever, are going to be big decisions.
Yeah, and some of them are those subconscious decisions. Like I decided to get up today. I need to, like for sure, 35,000 decisions.
Right.
That overwhelms me personally, as someone who is indecisive. I'm like, oh my gosh, 35,000 decisions. But I'm glad that some of them don't take effort. But there are decisions in our life that do, and those are those big decisions. What makes something a big decision?
Yeah. What makes something a big decision? I think one thing that makes something a big decision is when it impacts others. Like just off top, if it impacts others, I think it's going to be a big decision, right? And so we're going to break down some of our big decisions and kind of share our views on how we did it and kind of get some insight on why we did it, what we did when we did it. But like if it's impacting others, like that means a little bit more. Like if somebody's like, hey, you have this money and it's only for you, you can only spend it on you, like this situation is one thing. But my money, all of my money, is not my money. It is our money. And so it is important for me to walk in that and I think differently about that. Now, when somebody bless your boy with a little boom boom out the little show, bang bang, I'm like, all right, let me just go ahead and give me a little something. But when that direct deposit hit every 2 weeks, I can't just be out here in these streets flipping coins out here because that is our money and it impacts. So when you're talking about making big decisions, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that it impacts others. Can you think about something? How would you categorize a big decision?
That's probably something to do with my feelings.
Your feelings.
Yeah.
Huh.
Like the inner processing and weight of that decision. But the driving force is how does it affect me? How does it affect someone else? It's still about that impact, but it's also about like the pull that it might affect in me, or that's one. So like the inner pull. That's
if it ain't got a hard, strong pull,
then it's one of these 35,000 decisions I probably made. But when it's like I got to process, when I have to process multiple layers through the decision, that's how I know it's a big decision.
Makes sense.
Right?
That makes sense.
So like the heaviness of the heart, which is probably due to the possibilities, right, of where it could go or not. Money, when it deals with money, especially whether it's a new job or things like that, those are a big decision. Anything else?
Those are the things that make big decisions, right? Yeah. Like something that's going to
impact others, impact you, and money.
Yeah.
I mean, like involve a big amount of or just like a big decision is change.
Oof. Like just
change ruffles the feathers.
I think it's interesting. We're gonna get right into it here. I guess not every, but many of our biggest decisions have closely tied in with change. I don't know if it could be. I don't know if you can say that statement without bringing change in. Yeah. But like when we really think about some of our biggest decisions as a couple, right, or even if you're just an individual, right, like change is probably gonna be close beside it for sure.
Of course. I mean, because change unsettles. Right? Change is like, I don't know. Well, what I'm doing is fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or, like, I really want to try this. Or, whatever it might be. So, definitely. Change, impact. Yeah. And maybe the financial pool.
Oh, sure. Getting married in college, which if you've been rocking with us for a while, you know that we got married going into our senior year of college, was a big decision. We talked already a little bit about that the last few episodes about it. But that was a big decision,
we were in the middle of, at the end of college.
Yeah, going into our senior year.
Yeah, right? It was almost like we were trying to do like stuff like old people, like back in the day. Like, let's get married when we're 18. I don't know. But that was it. And just kind of going against the norm in a way to say, no, this is what we want to do.
It would have been weird to have dated you for another, like, just 3 years after college.
Yeah, it would have been.
Like, we
wouldn't have made it.
Excuse me?
We probably wouldn't have made it. Like, you're just a long time dating. Like, I feel like what is that
hit me,
is that completely startling?
That's hilarious.
We've said things like that before.
Have we? Yeah. Have we? Or have you?
We have on this podcast.
I ain't never. Somebody check the records.
My boo.
I ain't never said he wouldn't have made it.
I mean, we broke up before.
Once. For 2 months.
Okay, you're wasting time.
I'm not. This is our podcast. You waste all the time.
Don't be in your feelings.
I'm not in my feelings.
You probably wouldn't have. Like
that was just a left hook.
I I'm sorry that it felt that way. That was not my intention.
It's okay.
I'm just
that was
saying,
a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And that's the reason why I just think like if we wouldn't have, I don't know. I feel like if we didn't make it meaningful for myself personally, I could have been like, yeah, I don't know. You know, like I don't know.
Sure.
I think that making it a marriage was more for me, and I wanted more. I mean, I don't know. It was years ago, but it was a big decision to do.
It's a huge decision, right?
Yeah.
It was going to impact everyone and our close family around us.
Well, and you go, like I said, against the norms. Nobody believes in high school or college relationships, really.
And 90% people
those fail. The end. And it was like, oh, dang, are we trying to fight the norm here?
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, and then just being young. I mean, we have not lived by the age of 21.
No.
I don't know when you would have lived by. I still don't feel like I've lived, and I'm 33. Thought about that. So I don't know. I'm just saying it was a big decision to do so, but it took, a lot of processing. It was change. It was money.
Stressful.
Stress.
It was all of them.
Yeah.
It was all of them that tied in. I think off the top of the head, before we keep going here.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not going to do it. I was going to put you on the spot, but I know
don't do that.
You're not a huge fan of it. I will say this. We have had several big decisions. You've probably had tons of several big decisions as a single or as a couple, right? And I think one thing about making a big decision that's important is not to be hasty, right? Just not to be. And I think that if they looked at KaToya's decision-making process and my decision-making process, they're slightly two different types of processes, right? And somebody could look at mine and be like, man, Damon's a little hasty. Which, that's your opinion. I think that I am content when I kind of go through the process, through the steps of how I make a decision, that once I get to that decision, I feel good with that decision because I've went through my steps and now I'm ready to move forward in it. Whereas someone else may be, boom, they went through their process, they got to the decision, but in reality, their decision process making at that they have about 3-4 more steps of thinking about the decision that they thought they made. Whereas I made the decision, I'm out that bad boy, right? So it's just like
no. I started out telling you I'm indecisive. Like I am trying to make the best decision possible.
Boom.
And it's hard to know if it's the best decision till you make the decision sometimes. But I'm like, I don't want to feel like it wasn't bad. You know, like that this wasn't the best option because now I'm wasting more time or whatever it might be. So.
And I started by saying that to say I think it's helpful for you individually, and it's also probably helpful for you if you're in a relationship, marriage, whatever, to figure out your decision-making process, right? Maybe you're a journaler. Maybe you like to journal, right? Maybe if you got a big decision, you got 2 job options coming up, and you're like, listen, I'm going to call my mom, I'm going to take a jog. And, whatever. Maybe like, I need to sit on something for 48 hours, right? Whatever it is, right?
Know your path.
Know your path. Know your process.
Yeah.
And because big decisions have long-term effects.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, one of our biggest decisions... Oh, go ahead. Good job.
No, go ahead.
One of our biggest decisions was moving across the world to live in China.
Right.
All right? Now, what's up?
Yeah.
And so we had moved to China in 2012. All right, we're married. We are in Atlanta, and so we are in the midst of life with 1 kid. We're a family of 3, and things are pretty good. And then this opportunity comes up. Long story short, about potentially doing something different. Like, you remember that? I don't know how well you remember those conversations, like those beginning conversations. Like I just randomly threw it up one day.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I want to travel. That sounds good.
I had just started teaching, and somebody brought up teaching in South Korea, and I just came home one day. I was like, man, cause we definitely had a desire to travel. We were young, I'm saying, had never really traveled the world. And I was like, man, this could be a way for us to, double dip, right? To kind of live and get a little paid for a job already secured, and then also see a little bit of the world. And from one conversation, right, one of my processes was I like to do a little research. I dibble and dabble with a little research here. She's smirking if you're not watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see the faces. But I like to do a little bit of research. That's one piece of my discovery for my decision making, if you will. And so, long story short, we have a lot of conversations. We do a lot of different things to think through it. But we end up living over in China for a year and some change, or whatever the case may be. But that was a top 3 decision potentially for us as a family.
Absolutely.
It was. Had you ever been out of the country before then?
Of course not.
Oh, what you said? Of course not. Like
I was like 22, and my family hadn't done none of that. Like, no. Some high school trip would have.
You did. You went to New York. You went to New York and LA.
That is not out of the country.
No, I'm just saying you traveled more than me. I was just Shreveport, Louisiana. You know
That's why we was like, let's do it.
We don't know when we gonna get this chance again.
And money ain't the issue because we got a job.
Boom.
We're over here by ourselves, but we did it.
Yeah. So overall, relocation has been one of our biggest decisions because we've moved China, we've moved from Texas to Atlanta, we moved from China to Texas, we moved from Texas back to Atlanta, and relocation, if you're anything like us, is an important decision because again, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, it hits all of the tiers: money, pressure, family, impact, etc., etc. Right. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about relocation? Do you feel like that's one of the biggest ones, or you feel like we move it, whatever?
No, of course not. Of course, it's like I'm pretty flexible to possibly moving around, I guess. But ultimately, each one of our decisions to move are, they're weighty. They probably literally check all of those. So I think any big life changes you make, what's going to be important in that is that you're journeying through that together with your partner, right? Like relocating, how's that affect their family? It was a big deal, especially like China was more fun. China was coming out. Moving to Atlanta was like, ooh, okay, all right. And y'all know the story. We were homeless and pregnant, didn't know what we was doing. So it was an unsteady decision, but it was a very, we used to do the high faith, high wisdom, kind of like, are you operating in like trusting in the Lord in the decision? Or are you like kind of on the wisdom of this just isn't the best decision, kind of that struggle between like just fully trusting, even if it's a silly, crazy, wild idea, or like how do we trust and move in wisdom, right? So I feel like Atlanta was just high faith. So it's actually really beautiful moving here, but it definitely took a lot of conversations for us. It took a lot of thought. It took a lot of tears, even to start off when we were talking about, are you ready to lead at 21? Like just a lot of decisions. I remember just thinking, I can't believe I'm following this man to Atlanta, being pregnant. And we were only like 10 months into our whole marriage. So it was a lot to consider and it was pretty heavy. So I feel like once we moved once, it all became easier any other time. The biggest was Atlanta, and that was unstable. But then we came around China, and we were like, you know what? We're gonna put some structure and thought around this. We're gonna know where we're going. We're gonna know where we're living. The basics. We're going to, just have a few more things kind of hopefully rounded about. And so we did a better transition. And then when we moved back to Texas, it was, thoughtful yet again. So I feel like once you kind of knock it out once and you have your own process of how it's going to go. But that definitely was a big decision for us.
Yeah, relocation is a huge one. You got to just think through so many different things. I mean, yeah. I agree. I think now, look back at it here, that it was our first move as a couple, like just off top. Then we were just right out of college here.
It was our first time living in a whole nother state.
Right.
As a person. I mean, they may have been through Louisiana before, but still,
right. Yeah, so no, it is. And when you're making these big decisions, we haven't said it enough already, specifically in this episode, communication is crucial because you got to understand both person's needs and desires with this decision. Right. And that's important to know.
Yeah. I think about like even catering to your spouse in a way to say, or partner in a way to say, it's harder for them to make friends. This is going to be a harder transition, for them. I want to, let's see if I can look up some groups or, just different ways to kind of cater to the needs of the personalities, right? Because this might be harder for them. Or some people, like, the first thing you do is get a church. Like, I need to get around some people who just mean well, going to love me well, and keep me on my track. I want to live in a poppin' neighborhood. Just, like, consider each other. And I think when we do that in these big decisions, then we it makes the decision less big, right? Sure. Because you're all of this is fortunately decisions that we get to make with our partner. Now, right. Marriage jumpstart, still a partnership. Relocating, if that's what you desire, big thing. Mm-hmm. Now, we are listing some of the ones that were really big to us, but I'm sure you guys have so many more that are big decisions that you've made in your relationship. Yeah,
for sure.
Another big, any more on relocating?
No, that's good.
Another big one for us was deciding to even start a family.
Start a family.
I wish I could say it was super well thought out.
Mm-hmm. We wish we could.
It wasn't. Mm-mm. I think we were like, yeah, we want kids. And we were like, yeah, cool.
Down the line.
I don't remember really talking about, when do you want kids?
I don't remember that. If we did, I remember it.
I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't.
I remember us talking about the number, which is a common question.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing we said. We want 3 kids, 1 day together.
Boom.
And then that 1 day together was 10 months into our marriage.
You ain't quick. You gotta be specific in what you ask for, people. That's what's important. That's what's important to me.
I remember people being like, don't ever pray for patience. Because you're just gonna be patiently waiting for a lot of stuff. I never forget. I was like, oh, that's good. Okay. I need to be specific. All right. But no, it's true. We had no idea. Mission was the most beautiful accident that we could have ever asked. Beautiful blessing, but it just... I mean, I remember just feeling like I went into mom mode so majorly. It was like Cinco de Mayo, I took a test and I was a mom. Like, but before then, that month before, and I was before like, oh my God. Before that? Jesus. It was horrible. I was so sad. I missed work. It was just horrible.
It was a tough day.
But so we didn't have a real plan, but from that moment on.
From that moment on.
It happened to us, and then we decided to try to have a little bit more control on the other end. But, that is a big life decision for, you to make. Do you want to start a family? When to start a family? Are you on the same page for that? We had to be on the same page because it happened.
We had to be about that.
Yeah, all we knew was 1 and 3. Then we're like, all right. Let's enjoy this one amazing child that we have. And then we're like, we're gonna give our biggest gap here.
Yes.
And so we waited about 4 years to try again. Turns out I was amazingly fertile. We pretty much planned each child. Yes. And we did the natural family planning method because that was just like I just always thought I'd be the one. I'm gonna die from birth control and all of that. I was like, I don't want it. And so I learned a lot and brought it to the table to say, hey babe, this is how this works. This is a natural family planning, and if you don't know about it, I love to talk about it, DM us or whatever, Google it, but it's just being regular and being able to plan it out in a sense. And so that worked out really well for us. But it came from him respecting my decision for like my body and then us working together to knowing this is how we're going to do it. Now, he could have been real pissed that it went wrong because we were natural family planning that first round.
This is true.
Because it was all on me, essentially. I knew the calendar and the schedule and all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, those were green days. Y'all have heard this if you've been rocking with us. So, Damon wasn't, because he's such a kind person. And we were in a marriage and we were stuck in the muck together. So it was like, hey, baby, it is. Came sooner than we thought, but here we are. We're parents. And so it was beautiful. But I don't think I've ever thought about that. Damon, thank you for respecting the fact that I wanted to do that with my body, right? Like, you don't think that in marriage, like, this is my body, I want to do this, but you do have the right to do that, and we have the right to respect each other in doing so.
Yeah. I think you said something that ties into the China piece, and you just alluded to it here with the natural planning, is that when making big decisions, sometimes one person, either because of passion, ability, time, may have more passion about research and getting the information, or just may lead out in it for whatever reason y'all are in that relationship, right? And so I definitely think at the beginning, for sure, of the China move, and then you on with the natural planning, we both had to put trust and then communication into the thought process, right? Yeah. KaToya was bringing me. I had never heard of the concept of natural planning. That just wasn't what I knew. And so, and a lot of people I actually come across, they're like, what are you talking about? It's usually just go get the box. And anyway, and so that was me trusting, believing, being fully confident in my new young wife. that, yeah, whatever she said sounds good to me. All right, we messed up one time, but I know that in baseball they strike out most of the time and they still go to the Hall of Fame. So we doing all right. And
and it had worked out well for many months.
It did work out.
And then it was like, oh wait,
one time.
So now we know how it really does go.
So we know green mean green.
Green mean go.
Green mean go. No stop.
Because it's by colors. If you don't know on the calendar.
Side note, it don't hurt to have you and your partner with that app.
It's true.
Just a smile. That's the side.
We had friends who end up having like their sixth kid on accident after their oldest kid was like 9. And was like, because he was like, I know her body, and I was like,
but do you know this app?
But did you know her body?
Yeah, I didn't. Anywho, so that is also a thing there that trust is important. That leads to conversation between both of you.
100% in any decision, but you know, please have more conversation around starting a family. You know, and if a natural birthing of a baby doesn't seem possible, then keep going on the conversations. Does that look like adoption? Does that look like IVF or whatever you hope for? But
foster family to adopt, like there's so many different processes you could do.
Right. And those are
non-traditional routes that are still
big
amazing.
Tradition.
Yes.
I mean, big decisions.
Yes.
So,
and I think just conversations don't have to just be like, those conversations may take time. Because if you're like, hey, we're going to start a family, and y'all are on, one is apple, one is oranges, that may not be the time.
Right, but hopefully you talked about that before you got in here, and you weighed your costs.
Yes, you did.
But hopefully, eventually, you come.
Hopefully.
That's yet again Bridgerton.
Yes, it is. Talk to him out here with the queen.
Anyway, another decision. Well, we have team decisions. So, like, sometimes I think it's best, like, if there's decisions that you can make independently as an individual, and many of the ones we've already been talking about are just about, like, coming together. But sometimes it's good to go separately. Gather your own independent research planning. Damon mentioned writing in your journal, like whatever it is, just doing your version of planning, especially when you come to these like relocating and everybody's kind of, or if you're at two opposite ends of a big decision.
Yeah.
Doing your own independent methods, but then also taking time to seek counsel. So, like, not necessarily around any specific life decision, but these are good things to do. To stop, have a good, healthy practice of, like, your own independent research. And then next is just seeking some counsel.
Ask people. Again, we talked about this last time here, but, like, you ain't got to ask everybody. But the people who you know and trust and vice versa.
Yeah.
Right? Get that different set of ears and eyes on it, outside perspective, just to kind of get some insight. You're talking about moving from, Miami to Seattle. You're trying to talk about going from, two 23-year-olds to trying to get twins. You're talking about trying to do whatever it is. These are big decisions with real impact and long-term effects. So that's something that we just really have been a fan of, something that we really believe in to be beneficial. And, that word, counsel, insight, advice, whatever you want, it can look in a lot of different ways. It could be simple as you having coffee with a few different friends a few different times.
Yeah.
It could be you seeking professional counseling in a specific category of life. It could be a spiritual advisor you may have. It could look a lot of different ways.
Right.
But having some people that you know, trust, and who wants the best for you is important when you're talking about making big decisions that don't just impact you. And even if they did just impact you, it's still important.
Right, and weighing the pros, the cons, and putting it all down.
I love good pros and cons.
Yeah, this is how this could be great, this is how this could not be great, and then coming together and like kind of like a data dump, this is all my findings and this is what I thought. One of the things that are really big, like Damon mentioned earlier, our processes are different. I mean, we process making decisions so differently. I'm looping around for sure. And then Damon is like, got the decision, making it. But sometimes because he's so quick to make that decision, I'm always like, where was the thought process? You left me out of that. We've grown in that so much over the years because I'm definitely a verbal processor and I need to like really weigh out option A, B, C, D, E, bullet point, and he's like, girl, did you get the best decision already to move forward, So he's been very patient with me in that regard. So this is just a matter of respecting each other's differences, even in the decision process. And if someone needs to be more, I need to process through all these options, take the time. If somebody's ready to jump, just say, hey, I need a moment. Like just again, as always, if we don't preach nothing else, re-preach. Communication. Yeah.
The respect is crucial as far as the different angles and aspects of how you go about making the decisions. Because, and hopefully over time and in a relationship, you're going to continue to build and create your own strong, united decision-making process, right? And some of that's going to be individual and come together. Some of it may be all collective, depending on what it is. Right, and so that's important to understand, and making decisions, even if there's a pros and a cons list, like if there's a time on, like if it's time sensitive, that's one thing, but if it's something that you don't like, there's not a deadline on, like feel free, be encouraged to again not be hasty with making these decisions, right, and any and everything, right, even if you're thinking about a career change. Right, because we have talked about ourselves from going from teaching to full-time stand-up to leaving teaching, right? Whatever the case may be, those are conversations that were over time, and we've weighed the pros and cons of what that would look like. And even then, even if it was still like 4 pros, 4 cons, all right, we jumping. Like, all right, 3 pros, 6 cons, we jumping. Or what? No, but we have process through that because all those decisions matter.
We took the jump together, right? No one was just like, praise the Lord, no one's been fired, We're just been like, oh gosh, I didn't have any.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. It's all been like, dang, I don't want to do this no more, or I really have a passion to do this
something
now,
else,
and I have this passion, so what's the income I need to make in order to go off and fully do this, to potentially make more?
Yes.
And how does this impact our family? And like when Damon started doing cruises and was gone more, we had to really process, well, this is good money for us. We lose you, but you get to do what you want to do. It's a season. We talk about it. We make sure we're on the same page. So as you make a career change or whatever, it's just, you can do the independent process and bring it to the table, but be respectful of the way that everyone needs to process in making those decisions.
Yeah. You're going to make big decisions, make them together. If you don't hear nothing else.
That's it.
Make them together.
All right, we took 35 minutes of your time to say that one line. But we do want to know, what's some big decisions that you guys have made?
Let us know.
That maybe we didn't list.
Yes.
And maybe any process on how y'all do it. Or, man, darn it, we still ain't got that down yet, But it just takes time. So we want to hear from you. And as always, we thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in with us. This is Sum It Up with the Sumners. I, again, am KaToya, and this is Damon, and we will see you next week. Or you will hear us next week.
Out.
Bye.